All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hodlcast. Today is February 3rd, and we have a very special guest, David Foox. And David recently did a documentary, Bit by Bit, in Bitcoin We Trust, which I absolutely loved. I thought it was one of the best pieces I've ever seen on Bitcoin, and talking about all the great applications for the future of it, and yeah, I hope everyone watches it. But David, maybe you can give us a little background on yourself. How you actually got involved in Bitcoin.
So firstly, thank you for having me on your podcast. I love your show, and I'm really excited to see what you're going to do in 2020 with Hodlcast. That's pretty exciting. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of New York, and I specialized in intellectual property, specifically patent litigation. And as you mentioned, I'm also an artist and filmmaker, which is how I became involved in Bitcoin. I directed the film Bit by Bit in Bitcoin We Trust. And through in-depth research, came to love and respect and admire the futurists building this important aspect of our civilization. So that's how I got involved and became very excited about this technology.
Excellent. Yeah, that's an interesting background to go from being a lawyer to filmmaker and artist. What prompted you to switch gears?
Well, I've always painted, and I've always had a creative streak, and the opportunity came around that I could create more work, more art, and work on my craft, and so I took that opportunity.
Nice. And can you tell us what's something most people don't know about you?
Well, I really love painting miniatures from the Warhammer 40,000 or 40K universe, and it's quite possibly the nerdiest thing a human could do. I mean, it was even featured in the film The 40-Year-Old Virgin, but when I saw that in the movie, I was like, oh my God, that's my guy. So, it's pretty nerdy.
That's awesome. Is that some of them behind you there?
No, but I could grab some, but I don't want to do that to you.
Maybe after the show, or I'd love to see some of them.
Sure.
And so tell us, what was the process of creating Bit by Bit like?
So it's like unveiling a mystery piece by piece. Each interview led to more questions, new terms of art and fact, and individuals, that I got to talk to led to other people. But what I discovered is it's less about the individuals and more about Bitcoin, the technology itself. But these individuals are the futurists building, so they're kind of intertwined. And, you've got very big personalities and characters in the space with very big opinions on the technology, some quite contrary to each other. But I think as a whole, this very decentralized community is building something. It just seems like it has a life of its own at this point.
Agreed. Yeah, I got almost chills watching it, because it was very inspirational. Just all these different, very intelligent people kind of giving their take on what it is that drives them to devote their life to furthering this Bitcoin technology or blockchain technology. So it was I really enjoyed watching it. Yeah. What was the main message you wanted to convey?
Bitcoin is a very important technological development in the history of civilization. Its importance is not yet fully understood, but in hindsight, it will be considered a watershed moment in bridging established systems with more efficient technologies. The rabbit hole goes very deep and opens up possibilities never before possible, including triple entry accounting and Newtonian physics on the blockchain.
Oh, wow. The physics on the blockchain. I never heard of that before. Can you elaborate a little?
Oh, well, I am a filmmaker, not a scientist, but, Newton had many theories on money and what was considered good or sound money. And at that time it was gold. And we now have, with the energy put into creating each Bitcoin, we now have a provable system that replicates how things are done in the universe. Energy in equals energy out. It doesn't just disappear. It's being stored in these Bitcoins. So we have something that we've never had before in humanity.
Oh, I love that. Energy in is energy out. Yeah. And what are you most excited about for the coming year in crypto?
So I'm most excited about the projects that started in 2016 and 2017, and they're now beginning to mature and launch and gain traction. So gaming and collectibles have gained traction. Decentralized social media, I'm looking forward to EOS's voice. I think it's going to be really exciting, actually. And I think they can do it really good. Abra Wallet and Cash App continue to become easy onboarding sources for Bitcoin and make the user experience very pleasant. So, and everyone's anticipating the halving coming up in May of, Bitcoin's halving. This is the fourth one over its life. So, it's a pretty rare moment. It'll happen here in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And the decentralized, the voice, I'm not too familiar with, but I think we're really ready as a society for some kind of decentralized social media platform, and it's just getting so crazy with all the censorship. And I just saw Canada actually, I don't know if it's actually into law yet or not. I saw a tweet about it yesterday, but are requiring websites that disseminate information to get a government license before putting it out. And I was like, whoa, that's a real, that's too far. And if we have a decentralized one, good luck, government trying to shut that down. So
yeah, totally. I mean, censorship is definitely an aspect of social media, false information, political speech. I mean, there's, freedom of speech. I mean, there's, a lot of issues in social media, influencers, and, and then there's a lot of money being spent on influencers as well.
Yeah, big time. And when we were hanging out at the Bitcoin Mansion in Miami, we had a really interesting conversation about the Bitcoin or blockchain gaming. And that was really, like, for the next week after, I felt like my mind was just blown at all the possibilities coming forth in this gaming world. So can you kind of give a little overview of what's going on there?
Sure. I have a few thoughts on that. Firstly, when we say blockchain gaming, we're talking about games and collectibles, or maybe app games on your phone, and these are different things. We're not talking about like gambling, because that's its own. I consider that its own kind of creature, and the space is becoming more and more engaging. The games are becoming more and more compelling and sticky, and they have their own in-game economies that are based on real money. And that these tokens are unique and uncorruptible, or not counterfeitable. They can't make a million copies of a skin. It really might be the only one, or a limited amount of them. So we're seeing value being created in these digital artifacts, mainly because they are unique tokens. And that's how they can be collectibles or games. And let's see, one game is Upland, which is a sort of like Monopoly type game where you collect properties in San Francisco, and they have their own token, UPX. But it's only for phones. It's not, you can't do it on a desktop or laptop. And then there's another game, Mega Cryptopolis, which is like the merging of SimCity with The Sims. And they have a very ambitious plan to create a social media aspect to the little city that they're building. And it's working. I mean, people are, transacting for profit and, getting things they need. And there's a lot of different aspects to the game and a lot of strategy. Then there's, Decentraland and Crypto Voxels. These are virtual worlds that you can buy and sell property. You can develop the land any way you want with objects and scripts to engage people to come by. I mean, I can see future meetings and conferences, like town hall things. I mean, we saw the beginning of this in the earlier version, like Second Life. And, this is the next iteration of it. I think it's fantastic, and will only become more compelling as virtual reality becomes more compelling. Mm-hmm. And so we've come a long way since CryptoKitties was launched.
Yeah.
a big deal. And now have hundreds and hundreds of collectible games and games itself. In fact, I would suggest, anybody who's interested, where do we find out all the games that, like, I want to play? You can go to DAP Radar, and then you can search by volume and see that there really is a lot of, people playing these games.
Mm-hmm. After our conversation, when I got home from Miami, I signed up for Decentraland, and then I actually went on Second Life for the first time and kind of explored that a little bit. But it's something that I have never been a gamer or spent any time doing it. But I also listened to the Audible book Ready Player One on the plane ride home too. So and that was one of the best things I've ever quasi read or listened to. But the idea that we end up in this virtual world, it's not that far-fetched. I feel like it's might as well get on board with the games. And I was having I think I told you I have a 10-year-old stepson who's, in my opinion, addicted to Fortnite. And sometimes I get really upset by it. Like, I'll say there's a 10 o'clock cutoff, and if he won't get off, I'll go and rip the plug out of the wall, kind of thing. Like, maybe that's not the best way to do it, but it was worrying me so much that he was so into this virtual world that I thought we have to have hard rules around how to handle it. And you gave me a lot of ease or comfort around that, saying those skills are actually going to be really important in future economies. So I appreciated that conversation a lot. Yeah.
Sure. Well, just because you mentioned Fortnite and gaming, there was we had the Super Bowl yesterday, and over at the Fountain Blue, there was a gamer with like blue hair or pink hair or something, and his name's Ninja, and apparently he won $500 million, and I can't believe this number. Like, is it really $500 million?
Oh, wow.
It just seems, I don't know if you know this gamer named Ninja.
Well, there was someone on a Super Bowl commercial so we watched it with Thomas, the 10-year-old, and he got really excited. He said, "That's the guy, that's the one who won the whatever," but I thought it was 3 million. I didn't know it was 500 million, if it was the same person we're talking about. But
it could be the same person, because maybe that's why I was here at the Super Bowl, but I mean, I don't know the number. I guess we can use Google to find out, but whatever it is, I think, playing games will, be its own, it already is its own profession, just like professional sports.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned also, like, around universal basic income, that there's some opportunity in games to earn money. How does that end up working?
Well, I think, we're still a long ways off from replacing all human jobs with machine learning and AI and robotics and robotic manufacturing, supreme liquid logistics, drones, and all of these things collectively will replace lots of jobs. That seems to be the trend and the direction that we're headed. And in that case, humans will need to find new purpose other than their day, job. And one of the ways will be through games, and these games will allow them to earn money, and they'll be very, worlds that they'll do jobs in that they used to do, and it'll be very gamified, so the experience will be pleasant and engaging, and they'll earn real money. And this kind of is, in a sense, I know, purists of like the idea of universal basic income would not say it's anything similar, because it's actually totally different. But solving the problem of providing universal basic income without creating inflation, and then this vicious circle of people not having enough, because then inflation, if you give free money, it's suddenly money supply, people would then pay more, and you'd have the same result. How do you provide a universal basic income for people to obtain the necessary things that we could consider rights, clean air, clean water, shelter, clothing, food, healthcare? How do you provide this without how do you do it, basically? And that's the idea behind a universal basic income. But I just see these virtual worlds becoming, bigger and bigger, and their economies becoming very substantial, that it could provide that type of relief to humanity.
Mm-hmm. And probably, well, who knows how it'll get designed, but we have an opportunity for it to to kind of create a new way through the games, like in this virtual world, but for a much more creative or artistic or, you know, autonomous way for people to earn money, rather than, say, working at a minimum wage job in the food service industry or something, where you have, you know, several bosses watching, and you're on camera all the time, or, you know, in call centers, every word recorded and coached, and, oh, you didn't say that person's name 2 times on the call, that impacts your customer service you know, ranking, or things like that. It'll just be, you know, well, the way you know, we could do it is, there's a way for people not to have to report to any bosses, to work on their own schedule, and you know, find something that they're actually passionate or creative, you know, yeah, passionate about.
I agree completely.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of, you put those ideas in my head. but, but it's really cool. In listening to the Ready Player One too, it sounded like they had, it was kind of funny, one of the characters, H, had made all their money through doing these, like, it sounded like battle royales, and people pay to watch, or like the people fighting in them got paid to do it. And it reminded me of Gladiator, you know, at the end, when he's like raising his hands and saying, "Are you not entertained?" Like, it's you know, we just can create a whole new reality here with it. And it kind of gets a little freaky. I've always heard people like Joe Rogan, or, you know, even Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, talking about the simulation theory, or like the reality that maybe we're in a game now. And I always thought it was kind of silly, or, you know, I didn't pay much attention to it. But then listening to it, and then some of the law of attraction stuff too, like, kind of, you can feel like in the game anyway, you can create exactly what you want for your life in there. So it's pretty cool. You can just, you know, it's like a blank slate that you can design.
Sure, and there'll be you know, many different worlds like this, and these worlds will be interchangeable. You know, you'll be able to take your game assets from one game to another, and you know, people will flow between games, much like they do in the Oasis, actually, in Ready Player One.
Yeah, it's very cool. What, and then, yeah, let's talk a little bit. So for the, like, the collectibles anyway, I don't know if you can see behind, I have a couple frogs up there, Pepes, but my husband was really into creating the rare Pepes and all the counterparty assets, and the, you know, the Ethereum ones, they're not interchangeable in any of those games. So I wonder, what kind of, is there a way to like build some technology that would let, like, if you have an EOS based game, an Ethereum based game, or a counterparty based game, is there some kind of, I guess it would be a bridge or something, that would allow the tokens that you've accumulated on one platform be accessible in other platforms? Or do you think that'll become a reality?
So, I mean, I'm not a developer, and developers listening to this might have very detailed answers, but I would feel like it's just a smart contract between the 2 blockchains. So, you know, or something like that. Like, you would basically create an exchange between the Ethereum NFT and the EOS NFT, and that exchange would translate to an asset on the EOS blockchain. So I think that interchangeability will come by. I mean, with counterparty, you mentioned counterparty, and with rare Pepe, I mean, both of those, maybe that they might be, you know, because they're sort of first in field and they're very early on. So that might be, you know, more difficult or something, but certainly I think between like EOS and Ether, or Tron and Ether, would be super easy.
Oh, good. And so in Bit by Bit, one of the things that I noticed was everyone was very positive about the adoption of Bitcoin, or, you know, the world that we're going to be building with this, you know, digital currency. What do you think the overall adoption rate is going to be like in the general population in the next 1, 3, and 5 year periods?
So, okay, I think that overall adoption of crypto is continuously building momentum, and eventually that momentum will become an avalanche. And just like you can't tell which snowflake sets off the avalanche, We won't know the moment it becomes embedded in everyone's lives. It just will happen. So use cases and unique ways of interacting with value are emerging. For instance, MakerDAO, they recently launched, you mentioned, you were talking about Ready Player One. Well, MakerDAO's app is called the Oasis app. They have a token called DAI, which is soft pegged to the US dollar. And the token's governance and pegged to the US dollar is done through decentralized voting and autonomous organization. Users of the system can hold onto their ether while taking out a loan in DAI, which is soft pegged to the US dollar, and that opens up possibilities to earn interest on your savings or hedge against the price of ether. So, as these really, really innovative tools gain more and more users, eventually it'll just snowball into something that we can't even fully understand. The integration of blockchain and Bitcoin into established systems is not going to look like what a lot of people think it's going to look like, but it will be extremely pervasive. Yeah, that's what I think.
And I think we're already kind of like, if I remember hearing a lot that Walmart had put their inventory system on the blockchain or used some kind of blockchain for that. And I remember everyone kind of laughing at it, saying, oh, we need lettuce on the blockchain. And there's such a kind of divide, I guess, between the maximalist camp and then, everyone else, the blockchain, not Bitcoin camp or whatever you want to, because there's so many different camps or like, tribes in this space. It's kind of funny. But if Walmart really is using blockchain for their inventory management, then I guess we're already, kind of there where people have blockchain in their lives without even knowing it. But
sure, and that would extend even to things like shipping and monitoring and tracking cargo and farm to table, tracking which plot of land and which farmer grew this. I mean, I think these things are like well hashed out, excuse the pun, and are being implemented as we speak, if not already so yeah, I guess behind the scenes people will interact with blockchain related stuff all the time and have no idea that that's how things, that's how the machine is moving forward. But I also anticipate people engaging in cryptocurrency and transactions on the regular. And again, they may not fully understand that when they're sending value in this way, that it's going through this system that's been built based on Bitcoin or Bitcoin's protocol.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think too that we'll see in efficiency, and you touched on this in Bit by Bit as well, but the stock market. And I know Bruce Fenton he's a real proponent of this. He's got his Watchdog Capital as a registered broker dealer. But I think the day that we see TD Ameritrade or some traditional brokerage offering all of the stocks through a digital, maybe they can offer all the digital assets as well, but if they turn traditional stocks into some kind of digital asset as well, it would really catapult everything forward in that sense too.
Sure. And I think maybe T0 is working on that.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything too much about T0, but I know they definitely were working on it, but I think it's still in progress. I don't think it's come to light yet.
So Backed, I think, would be someone that could implement that. They would be able to do that.
The BAT token, how would they?
Like the organization.
Oh, BAT, yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm.
That's probably maybe even what they're considering, long term or something.
Yeah. And so what do you think about the crypto art market? I guess we kind of touched on the collectibles in terms of the gaming, but do you think there's a few years ago, it seemed like there was a lot of push forward for that. There was a huge community around it. And then I haven't heard as much about crypto art over the last year or so, but where do you think the status of that is?
So I think right now there is a disconnect between art and blockchain. There are lots of examples of decentralized art platforms or individual artists working with blockchain in their artwork, but the aha moment has not yet arrived. Considering the nature of art as collectible or store of value proposition, we will definitely see more and more blockchain services that authenticate artwork, pedigree, and chain of title. And then we will also see unique digital pieces of art licensed through blockchain protocols. The issue that I currently see is that if I buy a unique digital piece of art, how do I display it? Where do I display it? There needs to be like a flat screen display framed, just like a painting would be framed, and with minimal connectors to allow someone owning a unique piece of digital art to display that artwork on the screen. You know, I can imagine this being like open source, and then you can just build your own framed TV. You know, these LCD displays that are super cheap, and you wouldn't need very much, you know, interaction, but you need the software, which I think could be open sourced, and then like a do-it-yourself, like how to build, you know, a digital framed painting, and then you could put these unique pieces of work and their provenance, and you know, that's what we're missing, you know.
Agreed. Yeah. I saw one company that was offering these kind of frames, but they were like $500 for the frame, which I think is, you know, more than some of the digital art costs. So, you know, maybe it's worth it as an investment, but for me at the time, I didn't feel ready to spend that much on a frame. And then I went to this art auction, and it was really kind of exciting, all the pieces out, and I spent zero point 0.7 ETH when ETH was, you know, I think close to its peak, on this beautiful piece. But then it was only available in the Toshi wallet, and I don't even know how to log into. I'm sure I could figure it out. I have it written somewhere, but it's, you know, 2 years have passed since then, and I haven't been able to display that piece. I can't even find it on my phone. When I would log in the wallet, I would just see the numbers. I wouldn't see the actual art thing that I bought. So it was agreed. Like, we definitely need some software that will make that display aspect a lot easier. Mhm.
And also, you know, the lines do blur between digital collectible and artwork that's digital, you know, a unique piece of digital artwork, because, you know, you can imagine on that big frame that you're talking about in the screen, you might want to put your, you know, game token that's like, you know, if someone wanted to buy it, it would be 100 ETH. It's a really precious item. There's only one of one in the whole universe, you know, so you might want to display that, you know, axe or citizen or sword or astronaut or whatever item as well. So you want that flexibility, like what unique token do you want to display? Um, yeah, so, but I would be curious about that $500 frame you're talking about. That sounds pretty interesting, actually, because it sounds like it's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I'll try and find it on and send you the link for it. But they were at the Ethereal conference a few years ago, was like 2 years ago was where I saw it, and they were really, really nice, but yeah, a little expensive. And I remember, you know, how early we had digital photo frames, I think like as early as 1999, or, you know, I remember seeing them like a long time ago. So I wish, you know, they shouldn't be $500 if we had this technology almost 20 years now. But,
Yeah, and imagine how different we would interact with digital photographs if they were not easily copied and transmitted. That if it was like, you know, almost the same as like a physical picture, there was just that one. We would totally interact with digital images differently.
yeah. And so for your artwork, do you do both digital and physical, or what's your favorite platform?
I like painting, and I like creating fictional currencies in my artwork, and that's part digital, part hand drawn, and then that becomes like lithography or printmaking. So yeah, I like making fictional currencies.
Nice. And you display it on Sachi art. Is that how you say it?
Some of my art's on Saatchi. You can see it. You know, I just say Google. You know, Foox
Hmm.
money or something, or Foox money art or something. So
Yeah. What have you found the best like platforms for distributing it to be?
yeah. Social media, typically,
Yeah.
actually, it's like really a good, that's really good because you have like a lot of people all in one place looking at your work. So yeah, I mean, but also Saatchi art is pretty good as well. They have a pretty good system. So I haven't used them for a while, but you're the second person to mention my art in Saatchi, and someone sent me a link to my work, being like, "What's up with this?" So yeah, I guess maybe I'll like recharge and reinvigorate Saatchi art.
Yeah, it came up. I think it was the first Google search. Like they must have good SEO because it was the first one that came up when I searched it.
Okay.
In your bio on there, it said something kind of interesting. It said you're interested in the fabric of our reality and the laws applicable to universal reality and philosophy. I was wondering if we could just, elaborate a little bit on that, the laws of universal reality and philosophy.
Sure, sure. So I think it feels like everything stems from consciousness, and it's questionable where the center of consciousness exists, whether it's inside our heads or whether it's external to us and we are like, dialing into it. And so this kind of thought about, what is consciousness and how does it impact, you mentioned law of manifestation, the law of attraction, and I would invite listeners to look up like Neville Goddard's The Power of Unlimited Imagination and Joseph Murphy's The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. These are two audiobooks, or you can read them like normal. That I think it's a really good foundation for pretty much everything, actually, and how you use your mind to bring about the reality that you want. It brings about peace, if that's what you want. But it empowers the individual. And so, with regard to your mention of the fabric of reality and the laws of universal reality, I guess that would be my foundational. Those two pieces are really interesting to me.
Okay. Oh, those are new to me as well. So I'm gonna, give me something to listen
It's
to.
life changing.
Oh, good. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. And then on, different, I guess, different or maybe connected to the universal reality and laws, with your legal background, I did want to touch, usually this is often a law podcast, and you seem like such an innovative thinker. I thought you might have some interesting ideas on what the ideal regulation for our current cryptocurrency would be around a couple different things. So, I wanted to ask you about money transmission, ICOs and token sales, tax, stable coins, and ETFs, if you're game.
Just the whole universe.
Yeah. What would the ideal world look like from a legal perspective? And don't just say no laws, but maybe that would be the right law.
No, I mean, that's not reasonable in the world that we live in. The phase that we're in is all about integration. So right now, Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency, these terms are not this, they don't mean the same thing, but these things are being integrated into the larger established system. So regulation and rules are definitely going to be applicable, and it's to what extent and in how they're, implemented, that we can still encourage innovation. We don't have to strangle this very exciting technology that has all kinds of future use cases that we may not have even considered. Anyway, so with regard to money transmission, I think if you are transmitting value as a service like MoneyGram or Western Union, then the rules are already in place, and this would extend to money transmitter businesses in crypto. So there's no difference there. I would draw a distinction between onboarding or the on-ramps of dollars into Bitcoin versus, say, remittance payments across borders to relatives in need. So, you're not a money transmitter if you're sending your value to your family back home that needs help. But you are a money transmitter if you're taking a commission on the exchange of one value for a different type of value. dollars for crypto or something. And so, and then, but, what is more beneficial to the growth of the system? Lots of little players that are kind of, for instance, I don't know if you knew this, but Abra Wallet, when they first came out, when they first launched, they were going to allow every single person that had the Abra wallet on their phone to become an ATM. So you could then search geographically and see, oh, there's like 10 people in this block, and these are the fees they charge, and that could be customized. And then you could go meet the person and buy some Bitcoin or sell some Bitcoin, do the transaction either way. And they were starting to do like a pilot of it. And then I think they got told, oh, hell no, you are totally not doing that, and very quickly pivoted. And that's why, a lot of the direction that we're seeing Abra going in today. And by the way, the CEO, Bill Barhide, he's an amazing, amazing individual and is doing really great things with Abra. And their choice or decision to make it a non-custodial wallet was brilliant. Because it allowed them to continue marching forward and gave them the ability to compete with Cash App and such. So I think it's awesome. I'd love to see, if Bill ends up listening to this podcast, that, maybe forward it to him or something. But I'd love to see them consider bringing Abra Wallet and Twitter together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they could, with a plugin or something, because I know that's where Twitter's headed in that direction, by adding the Bitcoin emoji yesterday,
Yeah, those were cool.
It's such a great, nice little, symbol. So anyway, that's just some thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the money transmission side, what about KYC? Like, I think you kind of touched on that. If you're non-custodial, you don't have to collect it. So, I think the rules really encourage people to build on a non-custodial basis. Then they can kind of stay outside of the, getting their state-by-state money transmitter licenses and complying with all the MSB requirements through FinCEN. If they're not holding people's money, then none of that is really a huge concern. Where if they do hold the money or take that commission off it, perform the transfer themselves, then they're opening. It's a really cumbersome process and expensive process to get all those state licenses required, or to set up a strong way of blocking each state that they need a license in. So
Sure. And also non-custodial wallet solutions in all different kinds of ways really does stay true to Satoshi's vision in his white paper. So I feel like that's, that allows us to stay true to the original vision, which was, came in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. And, people that had their savings in certain places lost everything. So this is an opportunity, to not allow someone else to be between you and your value. And that's why I think non-custodial solutions are great. And that's why I like Abra Wallet.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And then for the in-game apps too, I think they need to be careful in the way that they build those, also to make them non-custodial.
Sure.
Software on non-custodial stuff needs to get a little bit easier, I think, for people to, securely, work with it. It's so easy for people to onboard with someone like Coinbase, but to do it on the other kind of wallets.
Yeah, like you've got like, MetaMask and Dapper and Tron Link and Graymass or Grayscale, the EOS voter wallet. So I think these will interact with the games, and you'll pick which wallet you want to use with them.
Very good. And then what about regulation for ICOs and token sales?
Well, I mean, I just, would say I think it's kind of like a dead horse. I mean, a lot was learned from 2017. Folks might consider whether the token is decentralized or merely an extension of fundraising. And if so, if there's even a need for the token in the first place. We want to encourage innovation, but not at the expense of the sheer number of scams and frauds perpetuated during the ICO bubble. Looking forward, regulations will much more clearly define the parameters of launching a token for fundraising, and it may encourage other tokens to distribute their tokens in different ways. So, I think it's definitely not self-policing. It's definitely external policing, but a lot has been learned since 2017. And I don't think anyone in the community would tolerate this stage, any kind of, I want to use a bad word, but I won't, but they don't want to, encourage any kind of, you know, behavior without integrity. Okay.
Yeah. It was really insanity to see all this, like, it just attracted the scammers like a magnet when that ICO boom was going on, which I guess is just kind of a interesting show on human nature. Trying to prey off each other a little bit, or when there's like an area to make money, everyone just runs to it, and it was kind of interesting to see anyway. But
Oh,
um,
yeah, and just to kind of like put it in perspective as well, a dear friend of mine was talking about this, and she made the point that just because there are two people on the train having a fight and are punching each other doesn't mean the train is going to stop where it's going. So this we're on a pathway with this technology, and people on the train may have disputes with each other, or may take advantage of each other, or pickpocket each other, or whatever they do, but it doesn't necessarily derail where we're headed with this. So overall, it's still a very optimistic future that we're heading towards. And I'm more excited about the brilliant things being built with the brilliant minds working on it, these, creative futurists, than I am about the scammers that will, end up being footnotes, in the history of it.
oh, I love that train analogy. That's really good. Yeah. Um, and we need to remember too with the ICOs. I mean, one, this house I'm sitting in was bought off ICO profits that my husband made. He was in on a lot of those ICOs, and I don't think if you ask him, he wouldn't say he got scammed. He benefited from the availability of these options, to buy Ethereum at a very cheap price and sell it at a higher price, or any of the other thousands of ICOs that went up in value for a short term. But on top of that,
Although I think the SEC said that Ether was not an ICO.
right, they've come out, yeah, the sufficiently decentralized.
Ethereum from that. I don't want to name scam coins, but I mean, there certainly are, a bunch of them. But no, I think also, as far as bringing in new capital, that's probably still sloshing around within the crypto space. The ICOs did do a pretty good job with that. There was, it really did bring a lot of money in, and it's not like we returned to levels pre-ICO days. We're now still well above it. So I think that new money was probably necessary as an influx. And in the future, all of these values will be much higher anyway. So that's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, agreed. And then also we do, the SEC has made it so restrictive but at least they have created a path now with their turnkey no action jet letter. The no action letter said, basically if you're using the token for its intended use, in that case buying jet tickets, that it's not security. So at least we have that for the in-game applications. Like if they had to, each time they wanted to have a token distributed through the game, have to worry about doing reg D or locking the money up for a year, making it a security token, making it so that whoever's listing it has to be a national securities exchange, that really would stifle the ability of a game company to have tokens at all. So now it's a guarded path, but there is at least like a path that these so-called utility tokens can move on. And I think the gaming is really a way that can show the regulators what a utility token is in a way that makes sense, that it's actually being used for your skin or something. Like, and if something's being used to buy a good or service, then it's outside of the money transmission rules and the securities laws. So if somehow we can make the argument that a skin in a game is a good, maybe it's not a tangible good, but it's still a good, like electricity, for example, that's been brought under the UCC laws, like which each state controls their own law. They're supreme to the securities laws from the state if it's a tangible good or service. So we have to, and they brought you electricity, which is and a lot of software into that tangible good or service category. So I think if we can move the in-game or the utility tokens into that category across the board, I think that'll be something that kind of gets hammered out over the next 5 years or so. But it'll start to see like different tokens do different things. Maybe they interchange, like sometimes they operate like an investment, other times the same token is operating as a useful, thing. I don't know. It's really exciting to watch it all unfold, though.
Sure. And I would agree with what you just said about, the tokens having different uses at different times, and then maybe being, not falling within the older definition of a security per se, because they actually have a utility. Just that the idea of a utility token having any value is where it becomes kind of weird, because a utility token suggests that it is being utilized. It's like a chip almost, not a, it's not necessarily like a store of value or like a, I just think that it's very hard to create a growing value on a utility token as opposed to an actual investment token of some kind. Something, or even an asset-backed token, or even a, store of value token or something, or privacy coin even. So anyway, that's just, something that I would like to see what the answer is to that, and I don't know.
Because even in that turnkey no action letter, they said if it's exchange, it has to stay on the turnkey's platform. It can't go on an exchange, or else it loses its utility token status, and then it can be it's a different analysis if it's on an exchange, which I think that's a pretty limiting thing, because how are people supposed to buy it? I guess they have to be able to sell it right in their own platform. But
interesting. Okay. Huh. All right, well, that's something to look into, I guess.
Every year it gets, these rules get more clearly defined. So I think we're still early in the rule phase, or the making sense of how to regulate this stuff. But taxes, what do you think on those? How, like, imagine, well, the reality of it is, for each of these in-game tokens right now, if they're airdropped, you get a tax on it. Two, if every time that you're trading one of them, you're supposed to be keeping a record of your buy and sell price, and being able to calculate that. And I think that's a very difficult proposition. What do you think?
Well, firstly, you can hire crypto tax consultant or tax attorneys. I'm not specifically recommending or not recommending this person, but he did do good work for me. Alex Kugelman in the Bay Area is a great tax consultant, lawyer actually, and can forensically analyze your transactions and tell you exactly what you owe. Now, whether he could do that with crypto games and collectibles, I don't know. I'd almost want to look to the world of like baseball cards or physical collectibles and how those are treated, and it may just be as simple as like, capital gains, short term, long term, and that's the end. And you just got to figure it out. I think that for transactions that are under a certain amount, like $500 or $800 or $1,000, whatever that number is, 300, I don't know what it'll be. I think there'll be exemptions, and I think there's like stuff, people are, it's in Congress to consider that. But I think it'll become more defined and streamlined over the next few years. So I don't see it as a hurdle. And then there's, other, tax considerations. If you ran an ICO and you took money in and created a token out of, just birthed the token, then, like that, then, you probably token, if it's a company, probably has a taxable obligation, most definitely does. But I'm not a tax guy, so I'm not offering advice here. I'm just, shooting from the hip, basically.
Yeah, I think you touched on the thing that I think will make the biggest difference, the de minimis exemption. So if we can have, yeah, whatever that number be, like I think 1,000 would make a lot of sense. I think the Coin Center one, I think it's the traditional de minimis exemption for foreign currency is $600, and I think I could be wrong. I always get it confused if it's 6 or 800, but I think it's 6. I think that's what they have in their current motion that Coin Center is putting forward that get passed. So I think it has more support. It came out in I think it was 2017. They pushed it forward and it didn't get through, but hopefully this year it does, because it just should be treated like a foreign currency kind of thing. We don't have to do all that every time we use a Canadian dollar in America. So why do it when we use a digital currency? But,
sure. And then with regard to stable coins, this is really, really exciting. I mentioned earlier DAI, D-A-I, and MakerDAO as great examples of the evolution of stable coins. We started with things like Tether, but it became clear that Tether, was not totally transparent, and also quite centralized. So if you have a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and couple that with open source code that anyone can view and verify, that's a more compelling structure for pegging pegging the coin DAI to the US dollar. And then it also goes to governance, because all of these voters within the system have an incentive to keep the DAI coin pegged to the US dollar. So, that's a lot more security, and that's an evolution from Tether, and answered some questions that Tether, created. And I want to be clear, Tether was very innovative, brilliant for onboarding dollars into crypto, a few years ago. But just like everything, it's evolving. And I think that, there's many other stable coins as well. There's USDC, and I think Gemini has a stable coin. And then there's, of course, stable coins or relating to other currencies that they're, pegged to other currencies. So I think, and then for people that are coming into crypto that are, just trying to find their feet, they're still new, but they're required to interact with some virtual world, and they need money, and they specifically need cryptocurrency to be in this virtual world. They may be more comfortable transacting in a stable coin that they know, okay, that's 1-to-1. Okay, I know that that's $5 instead of 0.003572, whatever. And so, but over time, they will inherently realize, okay, wait a minute. So this other thing, I don't quite understand, the denomination of this Bitcoin thing, but I know that it gains value over time because of its rarity and because of its, the value proposition that it puts forward, and how much energy is required to create a Bitcoin, and all these factors. And they may choose to put their stable coins into Bitcoin. Plus, also, stable coins allow for there to be, much more flexibility. When you're holding Bitcoin, you're kind of being buffeted by the winds of volatility up and down. And it's great when it's up, but it's scary when it's down. And you can, park in a stable coin, and then that would go to the tax consequences as well, by the way. So you would want to, hey, wait, if I'm going between Bitcoin and USDC, or, DAI, or whatever stable coin, am I incurring a taxable? And the answer is yes, by the way. You are, but I would, suggest to revisit that, and that it would be better if you weren't, so, until you actually exit into US dollars in your bank account, it should be kind of, a little bit, otherwise it's like 2 bites at the apple on your taxes. So,
yeah. McAfee, I had him on here a few podcasts ago, and he was really a big proponent of the die. Like he's creating his McAfee decks, and he made some Congress coin where he's giving a coin for each Congress person, and doing kind of an experiment with that. And
Okay,
I think all of that is based on the die as well. Um,
cool. Okay. Well, I'd be interested to see, what he creates with that project.
He's such a character, yeah. And then what about custody and like ETFs? That's something I think we still have room for improvement and to interact with the existing regulations on the securities side. There's, you have to have a way to basically keep every person's account segregated if you're a broker dealer. And right now, I don't know why we can't do that with crypto, but it seems like why couldn't you just have a wallet set up for each person? But it seems like that's something that's a major stopping block, or at least that's my understanding of what the problem is.
Because I think physical security of private key is a challenge when the value is very big. And, so you would require a different type of risk analysis and a different type of insurance against loss. And then even, putting a value on that loss, you know, because there's volatility in the market, it might be even hard to calculate that as well. I mean, look how much trouble Mt. Gox, the administrator to the that whole to distribute the coins and everything. They had a difficult time pegging a value.
Yeah.
So, it's not an easy task. But I don't really have too much to say on custody and ETFs. It's not an area that I've gone very deep in, and but I mean, I'll do the party line and say an ETF is coming.
Yeah, I agree. It's coming. I think Fidelity, and it's again an area I need to like do a podcast maybe with someone from there to learn more. Right now I have no immediate need to look into it, or it doesn't feel like something that's come across my radar too much. So that's an area I need to up my knowledge in as well. But my ideal thing for that, I think, would be to have some kind of, I don't think it exists yet, but some kind of way that the Fidelity or whatever company is storing the security tokens, that they have, that there's a multi-sig, so you can set it up so that it's non-custodial in a sense, but still enough custody that the regulator would feel that, like basically the SEC or FINRA would feel okay with it, but have a way that they have a key to it and I have a key to it, and then there's no risk of that. Well, I guess there's still always risks and everything, but yeah, I think it's not too far away to get that sorted out. Mm-hmm.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah. And what are the main things that you're working on right now?
Right. So I'm
And
working.
just before that, sorry, thank you for going through that, the state of the regulation. I think that was, I really enjoyed getting your take on all those things. So.
I mean, I don't know everything, but I'm definitely excited about where everything's headed. So what am I working on? I'm working on part 2 of Bit by Bit.
Oh, good.
And, as I've mentioned a few times throughout this conversation with you, this next phase is about integration. It's all about integration. And so part 2 of Bit by Bit is going to be the story of integration. How does, the Honey Badger Bitcoin integrate with this giant, much bigger, archaic, but established system, and what that looks like? And so far, it's been very exciting. I mean, I had fun at the North American Bitcoin Conference. That's where we bumped into each other, and that was good. And there's more things coming up. Mining Disrupt in July, I guess. I'll be at that. Yeah. So.
Very cool. Well, and how long does it take to put these documentaries together? Because just even in the intro of of Bit by Bit, like the artwork that you had there, the different visual images, like some of the galaxy stuff, where it was just, I could tell a lot of care went into every scene. So, how long does it take to make these documentaries?
Well, I mean, you can make a documentary fast or slow. There's a lot of elements that are it's more, have you captured enough footage to tell the story? Has enough things occurred? What surprises? Because you're not, you're capturing reality. You're not scripting a movie or a TV show. So you are going to be caught by surprise. If in the middle of filming something is happening that was unexpected, or the market moves, or there's a new announcement. I mean, a lot of things suddenly happen, and
Yeah.
that can go in a different direction. And of course, we're dealing with very, very rich personalities and characters. I mean, you mentioned John McAfee, and I interviewed him actually in Miami, actually. And, he had a lot of really good things to say. And, you can make a movie for as long as, you can spend 10 years on it. I mean, it becomes like a passion project, but you do definitely need closure. So to answer your question, it's a sliding scale, and I don't know how long.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And how do you I don't know, this might be too personal a question, but how do you support, like, do you crowdfund for the funds to make the movie, or how does that side of it work? Like, what is the cost involved in making something like that? And sorry, you don't have to answer if it's too much.
Making a documentary film is definitely an expensive endeavor. You have all kinds of costs, editing and filming, equipment, locations, travel. I mentioned editing, music composition, animation. I mean, I could give you like it's a big budget.
Yeah.
Uh, Typically, I've, got private investors that are interested in seeing this type of content get produced.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the pathway. So, I've never really had much luck with crowdfunding. Um, you know, Crowdfunding is an art form in itself. You better watch a lot of YouTube videos on how to do a kick-ass Kickstarter. Uh,
Yeah.
so, I don't know. I haven't done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would think everyone that's invested in Bitcoin should want to see these documentaries, get more and more mainstream, because I think they'll help the overall adoption. And Bitcoin's, like, some people say it's a giant Ponzi scheme. Well, it kind of is. Like, the more people that we get into it, the more real our investments, or of time and financial, like, in building this infrastructure, really becomes. So um,
I mean,
everyone watching this, let's push these Bit by Bit movies out to everyone.
and, by the way, I totally disagree with your statement that it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme, because it's not. I really believe that the value of Bitcoin comes from its technological properties, and specifically, yeah, of course, it's unique, provable rarity, but also there's a lot of energy that goes into making a Bitcoin, and that energy exists somewhere, and it always will exist. That's why, of all the currencies, once we become a spacefaring civilization, we're going to be transacting, from the Earth Bitcoin blockchain to the Mars Bitcoin blockchain, and that there'll be an exchange rate and a 40-minute time lapse because of the speed of travel of light, and we're going to shoot these lasers with Bitcoin data in them across the universe. But
Oh, that's cool. Well, I guess we kind of already are with the Blockstream satellite. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And was there a Bitcoin hard drive in Elon Musk's Tesla that he launched into space?
Oh, I don't know. That would be cool if there was.
And then
Yeah, I guess when I said Ponzi, that probably is the wrong. Oh, we got a cat on the screen. Sorry. That's probably the wrong term. But I meant, like, it's something where everyone that's already in the network benefits by more people joining the network, I guess is, I don't
yes,
know, not quite the same as a Ponzi scheme.
value of the network. I mean, this is
what is it, Metcalfe's law?
Metcalfe's law? The value of the network is proportional to the growth of the network, or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so yeah, that's totally true. And with regard to bit by bit, in Bitcoin we trust, anyone can watch my film if you're in North America on iTunes or Amazon. It's now streaming on Amazon and it's on iTunes. So these are probably, it's also on Google Play and also on Xfinity, I think. And also on YouTube.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So there's like a lot of places if if anyone wants to take a watch.
I watched it on Prime. Yeah, it was very good. I was surprised I hadn't seen it earlier. Like I felt like, oh my God, why didn't I see this when it first came out? But I watched it this weekend, and it was really inspirational. It got me kind of reinvigorated for the whole the whole purpose behind this digital currency movement.
It definitely works, because every time I watch it, when I finish watching my own film, which I've seen hundreds of times at this point, I always have a desire to buy Bitcoin. So I know that it's working, and it works, and it works pretty well on me. But I would love more people to watch it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for having me on, Sasha. This has been a great discussion.
Yes, I really enjoyed talking with you. You've got a lot of excellent insights here, so hopefully we stay in touch and can do this, more often.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. I'm gonna hit stop recording now. Sorry, now it's gone off my screen. I'll edit this part out at the end. Where is the stop recording? There we go.